Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse focused in the areas of advanced illnesses, typically those that would qualify for either palliative care or hospice care. Those are two separate types of services. I'm also a certified end-of-life doula through the International Doula Life Movement, an avid writer, having published well over 500 healthcare articles, an avid writer having published 21 books for hospice nurses, 22 for caregivers. The 23rd is currently in the works with hopes for publication before the end of October 2025. 4 books for holistic nurses and 6 books for end-of-life doulas. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit. In this channel, we talk about issues related to death and dying. After all, we are all going to die. Shouldn't we have a better understanding of what that process looks like and what we and our family members go through? If this is a topic, or if these are topics that interest you, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification below. I try to publish videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Occasionally, there will be a gardening video or a house project update video. The topic for today's video is going to be discussing ambiguous loss. I'm doing what I would call a two for the price of one. I'm taking a grief coaching class through the International Life Movement, and today's assignment, uh, this video is being published beyond after today, so to speak. But the assignment is pick an area of grief that was discussed. I'm picking ambiguous loss, ambiguous grief, and talk about it. And I thought, since this is a critical matter for everyone, why not just do a two for one, do it as a class assignment, and then also have it as part of my YouTube channel. Before we get on to the topic for today's video is talking about ambiguous loss. What does that look like? How it's different from other types of loss, how you might feel, including what other people might say or treat you, and how to respond to that in a constructive way, at least from my point of view. Before going to today's topic, I want to ask you, what are you grateful for? We face issues sometimes daily, weekly, monthly, everyone's different. Life is not always the big storms, the hurricanes that come in and wreck everything, including taking people's lives. Sometimes it's the micro losses, the small stuff that happens on a very regular basis, sometimes daily, that push us down, down, and down. And if we don't have a way to deal with that, we could easily become depressed. Depression is not caused by a chemical imbalance. A major study came out in spring, summer of 2022, that it's not caused by a chemical imbalance. But if we're not careful, we could become depressed. I believe that there's 3 pillars for resilience. Resilience is something we should work on daily when we can. Uh, Gratitude is one of them. What are you grateful for? Forgiveness is another. Please comment below if you want to know the first. I've talked about it before. What are you grateful for? So for me, what I'm grateful for is, as of today, and I mentioned briefly, I do film these in advance. Today is Monday, October 13th. I'll be sending off a copy of this to Lindy Carter, who's teaching the grief coaching course sooner than YouTube publication date, which will be the week of October 20th, not particularly the 20th itself. But as I'm speaking, October 13th, I have finished the final draft of the Hospice Journey Handbook. So I'm grateful for that. I'm not publishing today. I could, but I want to reflect and ponder. I'm pondering, do I add one more appendix? Right now, there's 3. It's 18 chapters, 21 illustrations, 3 appendices, and 4 pages of references, APA formatted references. Now, for those wondering, I don't use APA format throughout the book itself. That's a subject for a different video. I do that in some books, but most books I don't. Yes, chastise me. You do you, I do me. There's a reason why I don't use it throughout the book, because most of my readers are casual, everyday persons that don't have a college background. Anyway, I'm already going into why I don't. Sorry about that. But I'm grateful that I got done the final draft. And I've had several different AI models. Here it is. Here's the goals of the book. Anything that I should be changing or adding in order to keep the goals. And I'm finally at the point after several fine tunes, it's ready. But I'm asking myself, do I want to add one more appendices, which would change the formatting for the hardcover and the paperback, but I'd rather do the right thing. But I'm just not sure. But anyway, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for those who have been buying my books and reading them. Thank you so much for that. And I'm grateful for Amber. Amber taught me about thermography, which catches breast cancer 5 to 10 years sooner than mammography. She did not share this out of personal experience. Maybe I'm doing TMI. But I'm grateful for Amber, who's also a fellow follower of Christ Jesus. And she'll send me encouraging messages or ask me, did I do this or do that as I'm taking this class or that class? Because we are taking the life planning course together. And so I'm so grateful for the friendship I have with Amber and just a fellow follower of Christ Jesus. Now, getting into the topic for today's video, ambiguous loss. What is that? That even sounds ambiguous. This time I'm actually trying to make a pun. I don't know if you're going to laugh. I have a dry sense of humor. So, ambiguous loss in the most lay language is loss that doesn't have closure. It's not clear cut and dry loss. If you're like, I've lost pets, that to me, pets are family. When Apache, our one of our golden retrievers that I've had in my life, I've had several. Apache. She had, I think it was fibrosarcoma. I may be mispronouncing the word. It was a type of cancer that impacted her lungs and nasal passages. It was very brutal to watch. Her head was literally caving in, and it was just unbelievably brutal to watch. She'd have respiratory attacks, and if we were present, I am one. I've shared many times in this channel. I'm holistic, so I would use. You could use validation therapy for puppies. I'm not kidding you. I would use validation therapy with Apache, and I talk her out of her respiratory attack. And I am serious. I am serious. But she'd have respiratory attacks where she'd start hyperventilating and panicking and couldn't breathe. And my wife and I is like, if you're not home, if we're not home, we just can't. I mean, even now, just going over this with you, I'm feeling grief. But we ended up having to make a decision for euthanizing her. And even now, I struggle with that as a follower of Jesus. I don't have all the answers. I never claim to. I've shared many times in this channel, I am a broken individual. I'm just sharing with you so that maybe you can learn something from my experience in what I'm sharing with you. But that's a type of loss. And when I use the word cut and dry, I'm not trying to minimize it because I just shared with you, I'm getting emotional talking about it. But it's a defined loss. There was closure. She died. There was a part that helped with the grief where we we had a I'm not sure of the words, but we had somebody come to our house. We had her on her favorite blanket. We had now our Bonnie, our youngest now wasn't with us, but Penny was, and Mara, who since also we had to make that decision before coming to Kentucky. But we had them come and spend time with her and sniff her, and then we had the doctor that did the euthanizing, and then we had the puppies come, and I use the word puppy for dogs regardless of their age, and they sniffed, and that helped with the grief, but it was post-loss. So we had the anticipatory grief going into this. We're anticipating the loss to come, and then we had the loss afterwards. That's defined. We have a type of closure. And yes, I'm sharing with you, I still struggle. This was years ago for Apache. Mara was last year. I still struggle. Did we do the right thing with euthanizing? I still struggle. But it was regular grief. Ambiguous loss, which I'm going to get to in a moment, is loss where there's no real closure. That looks different for different people. It might be divorce, not just husband and wife. It could be the children that don't have their parents are now divorced or separated. There's no real closure. For myself, I I mentioned that I'm grateful for Amber. She listened to my eulogy and my obituary. Part of our advanced life planning classes. In order to graduate, we had to either write. I did an audio video, our obituary and our eulogy, and part of my eulogy is in the course of my life. I'm 62 at the time of this filming. I have had 3 legal last names. I'm not running from the law, but my biological mother gave me a legal last name. I had a birth certificate with that name on it. When I was adopted, they gave me a different name, and I've been disowned multiple times. This is part of where I'm going to get into ambiguous loss by my adoptive family. I'm the black sheep. They didn't adopt. Some family, I would hope most families adopt because they love children. But if you've ever heard of, if you grew up in the 70s and the 80s, you might know the phrase, "Well, be like the Joneses." Somebody lived like the Joneses. Well, what in the world does that mean? Well, that means at least in the 70s, 80s, and maybe it was used in the 60s. I don't know when it started. I never looked up the origin of live like the Joneses. But what that basically means is that a person or a family or a group tries to blend in. So everybody in the neighborhood where I grew up had literally a white picket fence. Our family had a white picket fence. The house was painted white because every house in the neighborhood was painted white. Every family, or the majority of the families, had 1 to 2 cars. So they had 1 to 2 cars. And the majority of the family, shouldn't say the majority of the families in the neighborhood where I was growing up had multiple children. And so my adoptive family adopted 2 children so they could fit in to the neighborhood. And there was other things going on for why they wanted to fit in. And it was easier to hide what they were doing if things looked normal on the outside. And as I share with this, Amber heard my eulogy and said, "Wow, three names," in a way that was kind and thoughtful, and I'm thankful. And if I'm saying that specifically because I'm getting emotional now as I go over the ambiguous loss for me. See, I grew up in an extremely abusive environment. I was abused in every describable manner. I don't want to go over the abuse for this video. I've done it in a previous video, not in detail, but in my video, can a sinner like me, be saved by Christ Jesus? And I'm thankful that the answer is yes. And I don't share that with you to preach. But I was kicked out of their house at the age of 19. And that was a type of loss. And it was an ambiguous type of loss because my parents were still alive, but I couldn't talk to them. I couldn't get closure from it. Then there was a type of reconciliation a couple years after that. And then when my grandmother died, my grandmother was the person who predominantly raised me, my safe haven, my place of rescue. It was ambiguous loss when her own son disowned her because she told me, she let it slip that I'm adopted and I didn't know any better and brought it up. So the safe haven was temporarily barred and the abuse for myself worse. And then he later let her back into his life, so to speak. But at 19, I was kicked out in the middle of a snowstorm. And then after a number of years, reconciled. But then when my grandmother died, they called my brother, the funeral director, several other family friends, hours, days before she died. I was going up to visit on a regular basis, but because she moved in with them in her last week of life, and every time I would go up to visit, if they were around, there was emotional, verbal, mental abuse. I cut back uh, how often I would visit. And yes, that's a regret I carry even to this day. But when she died, I got called after she died instead of before, like everyone else. I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye while she was, because hearing's the last to go. So there was no closure there. And then when I went up for the funeral, I was, allowed to be a pallbearer, but not allowed to speak. And when my grandfather died shortly thereafter, the broken heart syndrome, that is very real. They disowned me again, my adoptive family. And after several years, reconciled by me, by the way, just so that you're aware, all the reconciliation occurred by the person who was harmed. Like my grandmother was reconciled when she reached back and she reached out. Reconciliation for my adoptive family never came because they reached out. And I say that because it makes things more complicated. But there was reconciliation because I didn't give up. But then a few years ago, disowned one more time to a point now where I don't know. I pray to God for healing, but I don't know if I'll reach out again. So the ambiguous loss for me there is there's no closure. How does that make me feel? How I can't say how it would make you feel. And part of the assignment is how do you think it may make somebody else feel? No offense, Lindy. Number one, I'm autistic. So I'm not using that as an excuse, but it does make it extremely difficult to understand almost every emotion in the book. It took me decades to try to learn this is one emotion versus that because I would blend them in. And even now, I'm still learning at 62. So I can't say what it would make somebody else feel like other than probably either sad or angry. For me, it's mainly sadness. It's mainly sadness that I can't have a healthy relationship with the parents who adopted me. You would think, like, because I want to have that healthy, as much as I was abused, and much as I was emotionally broken, damaged, I still would like to have a relationship with them. It's a healthy one. Um, but I can't make that happen. That's why I pray about it. That's why I pray about it. I can't make it happen. I desire that, but I don't know. So I feel sad. For sometimes I would go feel angry, but I try not to feel angry too often. I'm a firm believer in the literal Bible. Yes, there are portions, and I don't share this to preach to you or tell you what to believe, But it tells you, like, be angry and sin not. It's okay to be angry, but don't sin it because you're angry. So I try not to dwell on anger, anything that makes me angry, because I never want to take it too far. It's not my place to judge or to take vengeance as the Lord. What good is that? I pray for their salvation. I pray that they would come to a point in time where they realize things that they did wrong, and make amends. And making amends to me would just be like, I'm sorry. We want you to be a part of our family. Like the last time I got disowned, which is the current status, I literally was asking my mother, can you please put it as part of your living will in writing that I would be contacted if there was a change in their condition. I just wanted to be notified. I did not want to be the power of attorney, because I did, at the time I was living in Pennsylvania when this happened. I'm now in Kentucky. But my brother lives in the same town within 5 to 10 minutes. He could walk to my parents' house in 15 minutes. A half hour if he was like unbelievably slow. If he was falling every other step, he might take a half hour. But he could walk to my parents' house in 15 minutes and drive to there in 5 minutes. 10 would be the in and out of the car and maybe unpacking. But I wasn't trying to be the power of attorney. I just wanted it to be in writing that I would be notified. And because I advocated too strongly for that, as politely as I could, I'm cut off. And I have to be okay with it. When I say it that way, I'm not saying the grief goes away. It's not like you say these magic words and there's no grief. Grief doesn't work that way. One of my end of life doula clients that's in the state of New York, that I've been helping remotely, um, I think it's going on a year now. She asked me just a couple of days ago, when does grief end? In all honesty, transparency, it never ends. I'm not saying that to give you a panic attack or have you curse or get angry yourself. Grief never ends. It might it might end when we're in heaven for those who believe like I do. And I strongly recommend this book here. Strongly recommend. I'll put it in the description below. And not everyone, no offense, not everyone's going to heaven. Not trying to preach at you. But Jesus was very clear when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And so either he's a raving lunatic or he's a truth teller. And if he's a truth teller, there's consequences to uh, everything everything. So before I go on too far, because I'm not saying this, to offend, and I'm not trying to preach, but grief is lifelong, as long as we're on this earth. And unless we forget, unless we get a neurological disorder and we forget, we're going to remember. The issue is that how do we cope with it? How do we manage it? How does it mold us? Because in all honesty, and we're coming to the ground floor, in all honesty, grief will mold us. Grief will transform us. The question is, do you want it to be a good transformation or a horrible one? Do you want your grief to mold you into something beautiful or something ugly? I'm pausing because you are, to a degree, in control of the transformation. You will either work independently or people like me as a grief coach. And I need to put in the disclaimer, I am not a licensed grief counselor. I am a grief coach. I'll be a certified grief coach after the end of this class that I'm taking with the International Dual Life Movement, but that doesn't make me licensed. Not the same thing. But either you're working independently or working with someone like me. someone like Lindy and others, to try to help you cope in healthy ways so that you are beautifully broken. Like, I consider myself beautifully broken. I'm broken. But I'm not ugly broken. I'm beautifully broken. And I don't say that to brag and say, look at me, because I've shared many times on this channel, as we come to the final landing strip, I don't consider myself good looking or handsome or anything like that. I'm just a fellow human being going on a journey that I'm dying, as we all are, trying to bless others and help others bloom and grow and be a source of encouragement. So either you could let your grief journey transform you into somebody that's more beautiful than you are now, bloom greater than you've bloomed now, or you could have it transform you into an ugly person, which I hope will never be the case. That's why I encourage resilience. Last leg of the flight, We can work through grief in many different ways. I know Lindy promotes journaling, and I journal a little, not anywhere probably near the way that Lindy journals. I don't put it in a book, so to speak, and write it out. I have in Notion.so, I'll put in a word or a couple words or a couple sentences, sometimes a picture or two, depending. And so I'll do that. I like going on walks, and I'll actually do prayer walks or hikes or spend time. When I look back here, you can't see because the camera's not pointing that way, but I have Bonnie and Penny, my two puppies. I'll spend time with them. We'll go out on the back deck. I'll pray. There are times I'll go outside or somewhere where no one's going to hear me, and I'll scream and scream as loud as I can. Because it's okay to question God. It's okay to be angry at God. And I'm not saying stay angry or think of God as being an equal. He is not. But it's okay. And I'll do that. Grief does not have to control your life. And in the final words, if you're feeling sadness that does not go away, and I've been there, if you're feeling so depressed that you can't function, especially if you're saying to yourself, there's still hope. And I've been there. The darkest hours, the darkest times. And it's a heavy, heavy weight that just takes you down, down, and down, where all you want to do is die. You don't want to wake up the next day. Please call and ask for help, because you matter. And there are ways to get through without taking your own life, without giving up. And I know I'm crying now, because I'm crying because I've been there, and I don't want you to be there if you're there. Because there is hope. There's hope in Christ Jesus. And when I say that, it's not a cliche, because it's not an immediate fix. It's not say this prayer and it goes away. But you can take a journey through grief where you are healed. The grief is still there, but you are not controlled by it. You're not pressed in by it. It's not in control. There's a way. Don't give up. And this is where I end. And I'm thankful for your time. Thank you. If you like this, like the video, subscribe. God bless.